Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Home Tech. I'm Seth Johnson. I'm joined, as always, by Jason Griffin. Jason, how you doing, man?
It's going great, Seth. How are you?
Good. Are you awake?
I am a little thrown off. We were just talking about that. The daylight savings thing just kicked in here as we're sitting and recording a couple of short days ago, and that's always it's always a little bit jarring. But this is my preferred time of year. You know, we do lose an hour, so it catches you a little bit on that front end. But having that extra hour of daylight when I get off work, I really enjoy.
Yeah, I wish they would stick to one system or the other. I don't really understand why we still do this. It is strange. I grew up in Arizona, actually, which I don't know if you know, but doesn't do daylight savings in Arizona. I think it's the only state that doesn't do it. And so it was an adjustment for me when I first moved out of Arizona having that. But, you know, I think it's a little quirky, but I don't mind it. Like I said, I like that extra hour of daylight, so I'll take the good with the bad, I guess. Yeah, well, I'm just scratching my head, you know, what we're doing over here in Florida. So, yeah.
Well, anyways, let's jump right in. We got a lot to cover this week. It was a busy week in the news. We're going to share a few thoughts on some of the big stories that we saw come across. But before we do that, I do want to tease an interview that we're going to be playing towards the end of this show. And I was joined by Andrea, Medeiros, and Jillian Bateman-Moore, and they are both from AE Ventures, which is a big publishing company in our space. If you're not familiar with it, the Tech Home Builder site and blog is probably the one that most people know about. But they've got a pretty exciting event coming up, and one that I thought was an interesting story in TecHomeX, which is a trade show that they're putting together. This is the first inaugural one. I won't go into a ton of detail as to what that's about because you'll hear all about it in the interview. So make sure you stay tuned to the end of the episode to catch that.
Yeah, pretty cool interview. Can't wait to hear it.
Anyways, so let's jump in because we do have a few news stories that we want to touch on before we get to that. And it was a very, very busy week. One of the big ones that I wanted to touch on early here is some news out of DirecTV, and we're pretty excited to hear as home technology professionals. 4K is something we're talking about all the time, and DirecTV has announced the launch of a 24/7 4K channel, which I think is cool and significant, but in and of itself, to me, not all that surprising. The bigger part of the story, in my opinion, is the fact that they're going to be broadcasting the Masters Golf Tournament in 4K, and that actually marks the first time ever that we've had a live event broadcast in 4K here in the U.S., so that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that is definitely exciting. I'm glad to see there's finally a little bit of content that is going to be delivered into people's homes that's actually 4K. And the specs on this look pretty cool. So it says you need to have 60 frames per second, HDMI 2.0, and HD CD, which I think is a misprint, but it's HDCP 2.2. So that's definitely 100% 4K. That's what you need for 4K. I'm glad to see that we finally get something here in the States.
Yeah, it is exciting. And like I said, I think the biggest part of the story is the fact that they are doing that live broadcast. We've had some options, albeit limited, for 4K content for a little while now, but really what we haven't had any of is live events, and a lot of that really has to do with the technical challenges associated with broadcasting in full 4K. And so the fact that they're overcoming these technical hurdles and they're willing now to put themselves out there and put this thing on the air is exciting. I did want to specifically point out that this is the first time we've seen it here in the States. Canada actually beat us to it. They had an NBA game broadcast in 4K, I think back in January. And I believe I've heard of some 4K broadcasts taking place across the pond as well in the recent past. So we're not the first ones out there, but at least it's finally starting to happen.
Canada. It's always Canada.
Yep, they beat us to it, if you can believe that.
Well, I was looking at this. It looks like the Masters tournament at Augusta is going to be the event, right? So,
yeah. Sorry if I didn't say that.
No, maybe you did. I just didn't catch it. But it's interesting that they're picking something like this. I think that would be a pretty good. I think it would show very well on a 4K set that's doing the full HDR spectrum and everything. That'd be nice to see, I think.
Yeah. I do wonder if their selection of a golf event had anything to do with logistics. I'm not a broadcast guy, so I don't know if golf is an easy, relatively easy sport to cover from a broadcasting perspective, or if it's, I would imagine actually more of a difficult one just because of the the geographical spread of a golf course and having to have so many different cameras to cover it. So I would think, if anything, my guess would be that golf is a relatively difficult sport to broadcast from a logistical perspective, but who knows? I do think that's an interesting thought, though.
I was talking to some broadcasters, and they're at the live events. They're already recording with cameras that have higher definitions than 4K, essentially, and the only exception would be kind of like the camera that flies over the field. I can't remember what it's called at the football games.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I'm not sure what it's called either.
That one's only in 1080p. There's a couple other smaller cameras that are 1080p only. But most of the cameras can do 4K and above that they have for broadcast. So they're actually downscaling everything. So this actually might be a little bit easier for them to do. But like you said, logistically, you've got all those that space to cover in a golf course. These guys are pros. I'm sure they've done plenty of them before, and it's just a matter of pointing the camera that has a shiny sticker that says 4K on it in the right direction.
Right. And if there's a broadcast guy listening right now, he's probably shaking his head going, "Seth,
right."
Anyways, just to bring this story full circle here, and we'll move on the home technology side as opposed to the broadcast side. I do think the thing that jumped out to my eye and what you pointed out was HDCP 2.2. And I think that this is going to start to mark a turning point where call center support reps at DirecTV are probably going to field their fair share of calls from people wondering why their screen is black. And these people have never presumably had a real reason to wonder if their whole signal chain was HDCP 2.2 or not. And I think it'll bring it to light for a lot of people, and hopefully not too many, and hopefully it won't be too painful of a transition.
Yeah, that will be interesting to find out. It may not do like a black screen. It may just downsample and play something different. Because generally there's like a backup plan for that. But if you have a 4K TV and one of these nice 4K receivers and an AV receiver in the middle that's not 4K, you're not getting the 4K picture.
Dice.
Yep.
Right. Well, let's move on here. Another very big story that broke this week and had really everyone in the technology world talking was some relatively unexpected news out of Sonos.
Yeah, it looks like they are. Well, the big news is that they unfortunately laid off a bunch of people. They didn't say how many, but from what I understand, I mean, it sounded like it was a substantial amount. John McFarlane is the CEO and kind of wrote a nice little a letter on their blog post, saying that the last couple of weeks have been difficult and they've had to let a number of their team go, and that they've been kind of suffering. I guess it sounds like the only thing I could think of that competes with a Sonos system, maybe like the Amazon Echo, and it sounds like that has just taken a chunk out of them.
Yeah, I wonder. We don't really know what the numbers are on Amazon Echo and what they've really shipped. And Sonos has been around a really long time. So I have to imagine that maybe I'm off, but I have to imagine that the install base of Sonos devices it dwarfs Echoes. And I just think that maybe this has got to be more a case of, I think Sonos maybe trying to get out in front of a growing trend that they see. And I do think that Echo and Alexa are without question playing into that. And we'll touch on more on that in a second. But I think this is maybe a case of Sonos just trying to get out in front of a shift they see happening. Really unfortunate that part of that shift that they're doing to respond to the market involves layoffs. That's always unfortunate to hear, but I'm sure there's a very large group of very talented people at Sonos, and I have to imagine most of them will land on their feet pretty quickly. I think the interesting aspect of this story is two things beyond the layoffs. Is one, the emphasis that they put on streaming music. And this, to me, when I read it, it was kind of like, well, yeah, obviously, right? I mean, streaming music this is not a new thing. And John McFarlane's point is basically saying that the company is doubling down, and those were his words exactly in the blog post on streaming music. And they believe that it is going to be the dominant form of music consumption moving forward, which I think is beyond debate. I think that's a known fact. He's very vague about what Sonos, like, therefore what is Sonos going to do with that information? And I think, to me, there can be little doubt that Sonos is really eyeing creation of their own paid streaming service. I just have to believe that's where all of this is headed.
Right. And that's exactly, I read the headline that that Sonos would be, laying off people and getting into voice control. We haven't really touched on that bullet point yet. But then the paid streaming is what really stood out to me. I mean, I would, bet anything that Sonos will have a Sonos Music that you pay, $5-10 a month for, and you get it, whatever style or type of music through the Sonos system, maybe the best quality. I don't know. Sonos has been the company that all of these streaming companies have teamed up with to get their music services on these nice little Wi-Fi speakers. And now what's strange about that relationship is now Sonos is saying, well, we're going to compete for those same dollars now.
Right.
on our, this is a first party box. It's our box and we own that. And now we're also going to have a subscription service on top of that. I wonder what that looks like to their partners who have other services on there that aren't first party.
That's a great point, and one that I hadn't thought a whole lot about is what the implications are for the Spotifys and the Pandoras and the Apple Musics of the world looking at this. And I think the bigger ones that I just named may not be as worried about it, but some of the smaller ones that are still trying to get traction, I think had better be paying attention. And I just think that Sonos has probably done the math and has probably gotten tired of essentially being a conduit for other large streaming companies to rake in all of these monthly revenues, while Sonos has really had to be resigned to one-time hardware sales and all the support that comes with it. And so I think from a business standpoint, it makes a ton of sense for Sonos to look into doing their own streaming service. I think it's only a matter of time.
I wonder if their hardware, I mean, it's pretty obvious, I guess, but I wonder if their hardware sales have either plateaued. I don't think that they've gone down. It seems like Sonos is just as popular as ever. Maybe they have. Maybe Amazon Echo has taken a significant chunk out of them. But I just don't. We're still selling a ton of it. I mean, people are still asking for it by name. So it's not. To me, it doesn't look any different.
I have to believe that they haven't seen a huge dent in their market share from Amazon in particular. I do think that Amazon with the Echo is eating into that slowly and surely, but I think the bigger picture, if you zoom out and don't just look at Sonos and Amazon, you got to look at the whole market. I mean, Sonos paved the way for this wireless music distribution, but now look at all the competitors out there. I mean, they're all over the place. Polk has theirs. JBL has theirs, Bose, Blue Sound, Denon, Hios. Like, you go down the list and there's, at least half a dozen of them right off the top of my head that are basically doing exactly what Sonos pioneered. And so my speculation is that Sonos, I don't think, is in dire straits from a business standpoint. I think this is just them being proactive and trying to get out in front of a market they see trending in a direction that if they just stayed the course, doesn't necessarily include them.
Right. And in Denon's case, I mean, they pretty much copied almost line for line what Sonos did, and almost down to the pricing and model numbers. And now they're being sued for it, but it'll be interesting to see how that ends up. But
right.
Let's shift gears and talk about the elephant in the room, the Amazon Echo and voice control, because that was a big headline grabbing thing that most people picked up on. And I've been wishing for so long. Like, I got the Amazon Echo almost a year ago now, and the first thing I said was, wow, this thing sounds like garbage. I wish my Sonos could do this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And I think you're right. It is the elephant in the room. The blog post from McFarlane, I think, was purposefully vague on voice control. I found it, very interesting that he went out of his way to praise in the blog post what Amazon has done with Alexa and how they're really leading the charge on voice control and being very innovative. He stopped short of comparing anything that Sonos might do to Alexa. I doubt that it will be a partnership with Alexa of any sort. Will it be a direct comparison? Will it be something totally different? Will it just strictly be limited to Sonos adding voice control for the music that's playing through their speakers? And are they going to stop there? I kind of doubt it, but I guess it could be that. We really just don't know. He was just very vague about it and just said, we're looking at voice control. So it's kind of anyone's guess what that really means at this point.
Yeah, I listened to Mike Wolf's take on this on the Next Market podcast. And he actually mentioned and I'm not sure where he got this information. I'm trying to see if I could dig it up too, but he mentioned that maybe the Play 1 had been rumored, and I haven't seen this anywhere, but the Play 1 actually had a microphone in it already that just hasn't been activated. Which is interesting. I mean, because there's plenty of horsepower in there to do what the Amazon Echo essentially is doing with voice commands. It's just a matter is if they have the technical chops to, pull it off and do it in such a way that people that works. That's
right.
It's got to work.
Well, to me, there's no question that Sonos would have the technical chops and the funding. They'll be well funded, whatever they decide to do, and so it'll definitely be interesting to watch. You mentioned Mike Wolf's take on it, and I really enjoyed hearing his take and reading a post that he wrote about it, which really he admits is pure speculation, but really fun to speculate about. Is this the time that Sonos is finally going to look at getting acquired? I have to believe in the past that there have been overtures to Sonos to be acquired. I just can't imagine that they haven't been looked at. I mean, you look at Apple and they purchased Beats for $3 billion, and what did they get with Beats? They really got a brand and maybe some proprietary headphone technology, and that was about it. Whereas you have a company like Sonos that's got this huge technical base and a big, built-in market. And I think Mike does a great job of pointing out where a lot of the synergies could take place for Apple to come in and acquire Sonos, and really how well those two would work together. And we'll put a link to the blog post where Mike writes about it. I think it's really definitely worth a read. So hop over to HomeTech.fm/103, and we'll have a link that'll redirect you to that article. And it's speculation, we'll admit, but it is a fun thought exercise.
Yeah, definitely a fun thought exercise. I think if Apple truly wanted to, they could probably make a Sonos rival fairly easily, and put Apple Music on it, because that's what they do best. But it's true. Mike makes some pretty good points that Sonos has kind of been designed to look like Apple products. I mean, they definitely played off the design aesthetic of what Apple was doing, and have definitely kept up. I mean, some of the best looking products that Sonos best looking AV products out there are made by Sonos. So I would like to see it happen, just because I don't want to see Sonos go away. I've got pretty big investment in it at my house.
Right.
I mean, can you imagine if they were to go away and the app stops getting updated and the speaker stops working, kind of like Revolve? I mean, oh man, what a mess that would be.
Yeah, no kidding. I don't see that happening, but again, it's a thought exercise, and anytime you see a big story like this, it makes you think, and so I was looking forward to sharing my thoughts on that with you, Seth. And let's jump on here. We got another story, quicker one. I think we're going to move through here, but important nonetheless. Is Nest released some new features this week that really amount to basically multi-user. They enabled multi-users on a device, as well as, it looks to me like some relatively basic geolocation features that I think are a no-brainer. And I was actually a bit surprised when I stopped and thought about it that these features are just now being released.
Yeah, well, this is an interesting article. I mean, we'll link to it. It's written by Stacey Higginbotham, which is she's kind of been hitting on this, or hinting at this idea for a while, and I've got to give credit where credit's due. She hit the nail on the head on this one. Is that most of these internet connected devices, or IoT devices, have been designed as point solutions for, and the target audience is some white guy in San Francisco apartment making $150,000 a year who just wants to operate everything off his phone, and that is not the actual reality that happens. Like, we have other people living in most homes, and that's what you've got to have different user accounts or a different user experience for each individual product. And I think this is a good step for Nest. I mean, it's something that just infrastructurally has to be done at some point. Whatever comes out of it, I don't know. Can only speculate. We haven't really seen anything out of Nest recently, so.
Yeah, this is really the only thing we've seen in some time, and that's why I'm saying I would just sort of stopped and thought about it and was surprised that this is really the first news, and that this feature wasn't available sooner. But I agree, to your point, it does make a lot of sense. In case anybody's not fully understanding what we're talking about, or if we didn't, if you haven't seen the story it's family accounts is what Nest is referring to it as. And in the past, if you had multiple people in your home or visitors who came by regularly who needed the ability to control the thermostat, you would have a single login that you would have to share, which is not ideal for a number of reasons that we don't need to go into here. And so Nest has now enabled given you as a user the ability to have multiple users assigned to your device. So they've broken that one-to-one relationship between device and user account. And then the other thing they released was Home Away Assist is what they're calling it. It simply uses the geolocation in your phone to tell if there's nobody home, then it knows to go into away mode. So not an earth-shaking concept, but one that makes a lot of sense.
Well, I guess it's them actually admitting that they're the home and away detection mode built into the thermostat doesn't actually work.
Doesn't
like they've been advertising for the past 6 years. So
yeah, it's a pivot.
Yeah, so I would say that is a nice concession, and doing what every other device on the face of this planet actually use the built-in geolocation features, or just detecting if the IP address of the phone is on the same network as the Nest. Those simple things can be done, and you can determine somebody's home. And putting a sensor on a thermostat that's in some back hallway to detect if somebody walked in the front door and is home, it's probably not the best thing to do. Again, this all goes back to the target market being some one-bedroom apartment in San Francisco.
Right. Well, speaking of target markets, I want to move into this next story. Traditionally, going to the movie theater for a night at the movies has a very specific target market, and that is really people who are able to get out of the house on a Friday night, and that precludes a lot of people. I count myself among them, having a toddler at home and another one on the way. A night at the movies is a distant memory for me. And this next story we're going to cover is really aimed at people like myself. It's called Screening Room, and it is an initiative actually backed by a name that you might not expect, and it's Sean Parker of Napster fame. And he is not obviously the only one involved in this. The story really made news this week when a bunch of Hollywood heavyweights came out backing it, like Steven Spielberg, Ron Howard, J.J. Abrams, I believe, was mentioned in the article, and a couple others. And this is a pretty cool story. It's a little box. They're aiming to sell it for $150. That's a one-time purchase. You buy it, bring it home. And from there, first-run movies will be available at the same time that they're available in the theater for a $50 rental fee that'll get you 48 hours to watch the movie. So that's pretty cool.
That's definitely cool. You know what's cool? $150 isn't cool, but $40,000 is cool. Sorry, that's my social network reference to Sean Parker. It was horribly done, but
no, I see what you did there.
I'm glad somebody got it. So there's a service that we've talked about before, or we've at least touched on and kind of rolled our eyes at. That Prima Cinema, where they were charging $40,000 for their player.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is going to gut their sales, I would imagine. Going from $40,000 to $150,000, that's pretty big. Right.
And $150 is not cheap, and $50 for a rental is certainly not cheap either. But when you look at the rental and you compare it to, again, take a young family, maybe not one as young as mine, but one in a few years from now when my kids are old enough to actually sit and watch a movie, for me to take them to the theater and buy tickets and buy refreshments and everything that goes along with it, $50 is nothing. You'll burn through that in a heartbeat. Right. And so really a one-time rental of $50, it's not something I'm going to do every single weekend, but this is something that I would absolutely buy and would absolutely use if it was available today. I think it sounds like an awesome system. It's something I'm excited about. I don't know how far along they are in the process and when we'd be looking for this thing to be a reality, but the fact that they've got these big Hollywood names coming out and backing it, I think is shouldn't be underestimated, because that I think is typically the stumbling point when people try to do innovative things around delivery of movies, and it really is all about pushback from Hollywood, and that's really been the roadblock in the past. And so the fact that it's getting this backing is really important.
Yeah. So I gotta say, I'm pretty familiar with movie math, because I tell this to people all the time. They ask me, "Oh, what's your home theater setup getting home?" I don't have a home theater setup at home. I actually go to the movies. My wife and I love going to the movies. So we have our favorite cinema in town. We have a Cinebistro here, which is actually really cool, but that's where you can dine and drink, and it's 21 and up only. It's really, really nice.
Right.
Going to the regular movie, we could drop easily $40, $50 on refreshments and tickets alone, just between the two of us. And going to Cinebistro, easily, we've made it out of there for $150. So,
nice, fun night.
Well, you get dinner and drink. So,
sure,
champagne and popcorn goes really well together. Turns out, yeah. So I mean, but doing that at home, for roughly the same price, not having to leave the house, and get to drink a little bit more. Hey, not so bad.
Yeah,
exactly. I think it's a pretty good case for this for us too.
And after a long week of work and chasing around a toddler, don't underestimate the value of being able to sit on my own couch and not leave the house. So cool product, cool story. I'm really excited to keep an eye on that, and hopefully they can continue to get more traction and make this thing a reality. But let's, without any further delay, let's get into our interview. Once again, we've got Andrea Medeiros and Jillian Bateman-Moore, and they are from AE Ventures, and they were kind enough to join us. I had reached out to them when I heard about this TecHomeX trade show. And again, I'm not going to go into that. You'll hear it in the interview here, but I really appreciate them coming on to tell us about the trade show. I think it's a pretty unique proposition and something they're doing for the first time. And I was excited to learn more and look forward to sharing this interview. So let's go ahead and get started. Hey, Jillian and Andrea, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hello. Hi, how are you?
Doing great. Thank you both for taking the time to join us. I'm excited to learn about TecHomeX. I think it sounds like a really cool idea. But before we jump into that, I'd love if both of you could give just a brief introduction of yourself and maybe a high-level overview of what AE Ventures is all about for any of our listeners who may not be familiar.
Absolutely. AE Ventures is now in its 8th year of operation, and our purpose really is to produce events and media that accelerate the adoption of technology where we live, work, and play. So we pride ourselves on our knowledge and expertise and leadership in the markets that we serve. We also try to sustain innovation in the company, and we have really high-quality content and production values at our events. My name's Jillian Bateman-Moore, and I'm the Director of Marketing.
Okay. Go ahead, Andrea.
No problem. Thanks. I'm Andrea Medeiros. I'm the editor-in-chief for Tech Home Builder, but I've also been doing a lot of the content coordination for this event, bringing a lot of the speakers together in the tracks we feel that they're best fit for.
Great. Well, let's jump in and talk about the show here. We've got a lot to cover, and before we get into some of the details, let's just talk about the basics, the when and the where of TecHomeX.
Sure. So TecHomeX is our baby. It's our first launch smart home event. It's an expo-style event, and it's in Orlando, March 21st through the 23rd.
Awesome. And what is the mission of TecHomeX? What makes this different from a show like, say, Cedia, for example?
Well, I think at Cedia, what you typically see is integrators gathering with other integrators. It's the show in the integration industry, or the trade show, if you will. Builders have the same thing. So IBS is where you see builders gathering. But for this show, we're gathering the entire ecosystem. So builders, remodelers, plumbers, electricians, integrators, other subcontractors, even realtors, to join them in the mission of selling a smart home over, let's say, a dumb home. And this is the first time this has been done. So I think the impact that it could have on the technology industry is humongous.
Yeah, I love the idea. As somebody who lives and breathes home technology and works in the field, I know just how important all of that coordination is, and how critical it is to really get a team together of people that understand the value of technology in the home and what it takes to implement it. So I think that TecHomeX is a great idea. I'm sorry that I can't personally attend this year, but I definitely will be keeping an eye on it and hope to attend in future years. So you alluded to it briefly, but give us a general idea of who the show is targeted at, and in kind of the different groups of people you guys are going after as far as attending the show.
Sure. What's really awesome about this show, Jillian spoke to it a little bit, but we're targeting so many different people, and we're going beyond kind of the home automation type of technology we see at a lot of the shows. Typically, we focus on the electronics and entertainment part of things. But what we've really tried to do is show the broad scope of technology. So we're talking about smart electrical and lighting, which so many not only integrators are dealing with, but what about your contractors? They're dealing with that too. So we need to bring a lot of people together to be able to talk about that. We're also talking about smart HVAC and IAQ, because with the tight home envelopes we have today, we need to be talking about that. That's an important technology concept. We're also talking about the monitored and managed home. So the sensors that you're seeing today, collecting the data. We have all this technology, but how do we learn from it? So that's also being talked about. And then, of course, you can't forget the kitchen, bath, and laundry tech. So there's just so many different people that are being targeted with this event because we're touching on so many different topics. But what it's really about is building the partnerships, right? So we can deliver this home the best way possible, because it really is a new concept that everyone's trying to grasp. And why not grasp that concept together and build those partnerships together?
Yeah, absolutely. And so you're talking about some of the different areas and parts of the home and where technology is really starting to touch increasingly. And I don't know if this overlaps or if it's something a little bit different, but I know you and I have talked briefly about the different educational tracks that you're going to be offering at the show. Can you tell us a little about that?
I just kind of touched on that with the topics that we just discussed. We'll be touching on those topics, but also kind of breaking it up into the segmented markets like luxury home tech and multifamily home tech. As you know, different builders and different integrators are dealing with different facets of the industry. So we're also offering different educational tracks for them. So it's targeted that way. I mean, we're talking about everything from high-res audio to water filtration to gray water to irrigation. There's going to be a lot of topics discussed. I think we have about, 50 educational tracks on all of these different topics, including some pretty well-known industry professionals, including Mitchell Klein, some others that we're pretty proud to introduce, and a lot of manufacturers that have worked with us in the past have really gotten on board with us this time around. So we're really excited to deliver the education from some of the top people in the industry.
Great. Yeah, I was looking at the website, and it looked like a very impressive list of people that you have coming to speak at the show. I saw a list sort of summarizing that. And can you talk about the process? I mean, I just have to imagine that putting a show like this together, and particularly for the first time, has got to be an immense amount of work. Can you talk about just some of the background and give us a little bit of the inside baseball as to how this event has really come together?
Absolutely. You know, Andrea has really been our superstar for this. She's living and breathing the industry every day, talking to builders about who they're working with and what technologies they're interested in. So she has really been at the forefront of this initiative. So I'm going to let her speak a little bit about how she's corralled everybody together.
Great.
Well, we actually have a pretty amazing team here. We have a group that typically is used to writing, but everyone here has really gotten on board with this event, getting on the phone, talking to some of our contacts and really bringing people together that we've really enjoyed working with in the industry. It's been a long process, probably 3 months of outreach and emails and phone calls, but this week it's really starting to round out. A lot of our speakers, we've had planning calls with them, and it's just been really cool to see how they're planning to work together and be on those planning calls and seeing how their presentations are coming together. I was on a call with Dave Pedigo of Cedia, and then also an integrator that uses some of the Macintosh products. It's just awesome to hear them bounce ideas off of each other, and us being a part of that process, being a part of bringing them together. It's been pretty cool. It's been really difficult to corral everyone.
I'm sure.
It's be worth it. We're really excited. And we also have, which I didn't mention, we have the regular seminars and educational sessions that you would see at most of these events, but we also have kind of a main stage that's going to be on our expo floor. So this has been really fun to create an atmosphere here, because it's going to be not the presentations on the PowerPoints and the kind of stiff presentation you're used to. It's going to be kind of a casual event where we'll have off-the-cuff conversations with some industry experts. I think CD is getting involved with that. Z-Wave Alliance, Lutron, Alarm.com, really getting these people kind of, off script and really talking to them about their ideas and kind of sounding off on the latest trends. So we're really trying to do some new and different things here that we haven't seen at other shows.
That's great. Yeah, I'm happy to hear you say that. I go to Cedia every year, and last year went out to the CE Pro Summit, and I have to say that my favorite part of going to these shows is always just the brainstorming that can happen when you get a bunch of people together. And it's typically the stuff that you don't really plan for, that you don't necessarily go into the show expecting. And so I'm happy to hear you say that you're taking steps to kind of keep the show casual and let people get together and just trade ideas in a setting that can be really conducive to that sort of conversation. I think that's great. Can you talk about, roughly how many exhibitors and attendees are you guys expecting this year?
Sure. So we're expecting about 1,000 attendees. And, for a first-time event, we're thrilled with that. And it requires vision and belief. And we were lucky to find some really great companies to invest alongside us on this concept of connecting the entire ecosystem. So, we have a very diverse set of sponsors, but, to go through some of the top level gold sponsors, we're talking companies like Lutron Electronics, Legrand, Pellicart Corporation, Visual Sports, Alarm.com, House, Ketra, Panasonic. So they're stepping up in a big way and really showing themselves as thought leaders in the industry.
That's great. That's great. I'm glad to hear you're getting that sort of support, and I think that it's a great mission. Again, it's a show that I'm bummed I didn't find out about sooner. It just came across my radar a couple of months ago, and would love to be attending. Can you speak about just generally like the registration process? Is it too late to get registered? If there's somebody listening to this show right now and is maybe in the area and wants to attend, is there still time?
Absolutely. So people can go to TecHomeX.com/register and get themselves registered. A pass for the expo floor is absolutely free, so they can come and check out the technologies. And then we have the, very diverse, comprehensive seminar program that Andrea's put together, along with some networking events, cocktail receptions and keynote luncheon presentations, which are really, really looking strong here at this point.
Great. One other question I wanted to ask you, and I want to zoom out again a little bit and look at the show from a higher level. And a lot of what I read about the show when I look at the website and a lot of the messaging there is really around the opportunity that's being presented by this explosion in home technology, and how this show is really about getting people together to figure out how we can position ourselves and how we can best strategize to really take advantage of the evolution that's happening in home technology. Can you share just some of your thoughts on that and elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. We totally get that. I've talked a lot about that on AV Week, and here at Tech Home Builder, we've tried to put together an educational program to talk about that, talk about interoperability and all of the issues in the marketplace right now. Actually, a general session, so this will be one of the breakfasts that I'm pretty excited for, is the Vision 2020 breakfast. So that's kind of talking about the explosion in technology you just discussed, and what do we do with it all, and where do we see it going in the next 5 years. I have David Carolyn from Smart Home Hero speaking on managed services there, also Legrand on electrical devices, Dave Daniels from House, which is a pretty cool situation. I'm not sure if you heard about, but it's a training type of college, a university they've put together to train integrators in the industry. As you know, that's been a huge issue as the housing market has come back. There just aren't enough trained people. So he'll also touch on that and where we need to see that going in the next 5 years. We have Jim Carroll with Connected Home Advisory talking about control. And then Jill Pickerly from Rosewater touching on energy generation and storage, which is obviously another huge thing we're seeing this year. At every show I've been at, I've seen things go from talking about home automation all the time to talking about this idea of energy generation and storage and how we're going to make that work with all of the net metering issues. So we're really excited about this program. Like I said, we're touching all of the elements in the tech home of today and tomorrow. So we're pretty pumped, and we want you guys to be too.
Right. And just to piggyback off of what Andrea had said, there is so much more to the smart home of today than electronics and home automation. I think all of the industry sectors that we're bringing together at the event have opportunities and roles to play in this bigger, broader version of what a connected home is. It's emerging out of the Internet of Things, and it's penetrating the home front, across the board. So I think this opportunity is bigger than what we could have ever expected. And I'm really excited to see what happens in a couple weeks in Orlando.
Right. And just to talk about the HVAC contractors alone, you don't usually think of them
right.
when you talk about technology. But I've had phone conversations with them planning for the Smart HVAC and IAQ track, and they know a lot about the industry, and they have a lot to say, and there aren't a lot of shows that give them that platform. Mm-hmm. So it's been really exciting to be able to do that.
That's great. Well, it sounds, right up my alley. These are a lot of the themes that here on the Home Tech podcast we're constantly talking about and touching on. And so I think it's a very exciting show, and I appreciate you taking the time to come on and join us. I'm wondering, for somebody like me who's interested in the show but is not able to attend, is there going to be any live streamed events? Presumably you've got a Twitter handle set up. We could follow there as well. But let us know, for people who aren't able to attend the show but maybe want to keep an eye on it in real time, what's the best way to do that?
Sure. So all of our editorial staff at Tech Home Builder will be tweeting out what's going on live at the event, #TecHomeX. We'll have recaps of the show the week after. So if you want to check out some of the videos that we have, interviews with speakers and exhibitors, that will all be coming up very shortly after the show. And of course, Jason, we'll want to bring you out to Long Beach next year. We got to get you out there.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for taking the time to come on the show. Best of luck with TecHomeX. I think it's a noble venture you guys are undertaking, and I really wish you all the best with it, and we'll be looking forward to seeing how the show goes. So thanks again for coming on.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you for having us.
All right, well, that wraps up our interview. Thank you again, Andrea and Jillian, if you're listening, for coming on. Really appreciate it. And once again, want to wish you the best of luck with TecHomeX, which, as this show is airing, is right around the corner. And we'll definitely be keeping an eye on it. So really enjoyed the conversation.
Yep, very good conversation. Excited to see what comes out of the expo there, because it seems like a really good idea to bring all these groups together.
Yeah, definitely.
So I want to mention one time, I don't think we mentioned it earlier in the show, but I want to mention it now. All the links to everything we've talked about on this show is going to be over on our show notes. So you go over to HomeTech.fm/103 for episode 103. And that's going to get you all the show notes. You can link and click out and check out all the articles that we pull everything from each week. Go to our show notes. And if you want to learn more, just run over there and click on the show note.
Absolutely. And just to close it out, I want to thank everybody, as always, for listening. We really do appreciate you tuning in. It's been a lot of fun doing another show with you here. And want to also encourage you to sign up for our email list if you haven't done that yet. That's something we're ramping up this year and doing a lot more with than we've done in the past. And we think people are really enjoying it. So hop over to the website, HomeTech.fm, and over on the right-hand side of the website, you'll see a really quick sign-up form. We promise no spam. It's all quality there, and we'd really love to have you sign up and join us.
Yep, and there's also a link on the HomeTech.fm/support if you'd like to check out and support the show. We have a couple of options there, including a link to our Patreon page, or just throw us a few stars on iTunes. That really helps out. Actually, any podcast you listen to, if you like it, go give it some stars on iTunes, because it really helps with other people finding the podcast and listening to it. It helps keep us motivated and helps keep us going each week.
Absolutely. All right, Seth. Well, great show. Had a lot of fun, and look forward to talking to you next week.
Sounds good. I'll see you next week.
All right. Take care.